Hey fam, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. Today, the one-year anniversary of 17 people shot and killed at Parkland High School in Florida. Those young folks who survived have become enormous spokespeople on the issue of gun control. They had a huge impact in the midterm elections, mobilizing young people to vote on this issue, challenging Republicans and Democrats when it comes to the issue of gun control. One of the folks, of course, who is a survivor is Tyra Hemans. Tyra, of course, has also been out front as well. She joins us right now. Tyra, good to talk with you again. How are you?
How are you?
Doing great. How is today an emotional day for you, knowing it's the first anniversary of tragedy hitting your campus a year ago?
So absolutely, today's obviously like a pit in my stomach because I didn't expect for it to hit me as hard as it did, but it triggered me more when it was exactly 2:40 p.m. And then all of a sudden I was in class because I'm in college. And I had to be excused because I literally was just like feeling the heat, and like it was just a very emotional day because knowing that I went to school last year as a high schooler, like normal day, Valentine's Day, and then to leave that day knowing that I'm going to have to be an advocate, a proud like person, because the next day I was protesting because I knew that I cannot let this be forgotten. Because when I saw in the news that they had found who the killer was, I was just like, wow. He's going to get more notoriety if I don't say something. And that's how I looked at this situation. And today, it was just a whole bunch of, like, cries, seeing all the social media mourns and, like, thoughts and prayers. And, like, today I went to go see my friend's father, like, Joaquin's dad. He put a mural in New York for the 17 people today. And it was just, I saw my teacher. It was very nice. Like, it helped bring, like, light back to this day. But it was just a very emotional day. Like, I don't know if words can really describe a feeling, but that's how I'm going to describe it. Like, today was just emotional.
One of the things that that obviously jumps out, I mean, this is a day that people celebrate love. And exactly. having to remember folks who lost their life on this day. You talk about being an activist. I'm sorry, go ahead.
They lost their loved ones this day. Like, today is the day that you wake up and then you know it's going to be Valentine's Day with your family. It's like a bunch of love, hearts. It's love. Like, it hurts more because it's like a mental image. It's like every time I see all this love, I know that the people that I should be saying Happy Valentine's to, they're not here. And it's like, they died on a day that I'm supposed to be cherishing, loving someone, being here, being in my presence, but they're not in my presence. And that's what really hurts because it's like such a very bad tragedy happened on a day of love. And that's the worst thing that could ever happen. Like, not worst thing because they're like, but that was the worst thing. Like, what am I saying? That, like, I don't even know. Like, today is a very, like, I don't know how to describe it. I'm going through it.
You and I talked on the Tom Joyner Morning Show when you and others were traveling around this country. And so many people have been touched by Parkland students, not just for how y'all have handled this mass shooting, but also the level of activism, how you have challenged politicians, how you have been unwilling to back down, and how you have also mobilized other young people to understand the power of the vote. You played a huge role in the midterm elections in 2018. Do you see this intensity continuing through the 2020 presidential campaign?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Because us knowing that in our country, we have to, like, to get stuff changed in our country, you have to do a political sense. So that is why when come the 20 elections, like, we have to push for it because we all know we need to get someone out of the house because they just showed us that they will never, ever care for this country the way a president's supposed to. So as a, like, advocate for lives, like, obviously we care about everyone. We want prosperity for everyone. So us fighting the fight, we're always going to put 100% in it.
And final question. When we look at this, for a lot of people, they assume that only white students were impacted. You and other African Americans made it perfectly clear that your voices mattered as well. And what has that been like as you have worked with others, leaned on others to get them to understand that Black voices matter too?
Oh, I didn't hear what you said in the first beginning, but
That again, the importance of Black voices matter. That we see more than just white Parkland students. That you and others have also been hearing from other Black students across the country who have also been impacted by gun violence.
so what I say to that is that's why I initially moved, because I want to help bring the voices here. Because when Parkland did happen, I'm gonna be the first to tell you it's because a bunch of white kids got shot, but they were my friends too. But how it happened, it made people tune in, because this happens in every rural urban area, and people just look at that as, oh, it's a 5 o'clock news segment, on to the next. But it's like these kids have voices that are as powerful as ours, because we all suffer the same trauma. And if we have to, I'm telling you, I want to be able to push for the voice, because we're all we all know what's happening in our community. It's just they're being incarcerated, you're being brutally killed, you're being it's just not fair, and people are not given the right outlet or the right voice to speak about it, and it's just we have to bring those forward.
All right. Well, Tyra, we appreciate you joining us on this day. I told you that we will stay connected, and I will use my platforms to ensure that you always had a voice. Glad to see that you are still out there using your voice. Good luck in your first year in college. Anytime you want to talk, give us a ring.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
You do the same. I just want to go to my panel here real quickly before I go to my next story. And Teresa, look, there's no 17 or 18-year-old person out there who wants to be initiated into this fraternity or sorority. It reminds me of when we talk about mothers of the movement. We talk about the civil rights movement, Betty Shabazz, Coretta Scott King, and Myrlie Evers, women who lost their husbands to assassination. When you look at the mothers of the movement, whether you're talking about Eric Garner's mother, whether you talk about Sabrina Fulton, whether you talk about Lucy McBath, these Black women who have lost their children to police violence or gun violence. Now you have these young people who should be full of life, enjoying their freshman year in college or their senior years. But on this day, they're dealing with the issue of 17 folks being gunned down right in front of them at their high school last year.
Agreed. The pressure is at an all-time high, especially, with the day commemorating what it is, but also them being pressured into joining any type of sorority or fraternity, that has to relive this. They should be doing, again, it's only been a year, but they should be still taking the time to heal, taking the time to reflect, and trying to, bring the livelihood of life back to what they used to love before this situation happened. Now, I'm not saying we should forget about the past, but we have to focus on the future, but also not put the pressure on the young minds who, is taking it in daily, also taking in national news of what's going on without, it's like, for me, I feel like they're making civil rights activists, at an early age versus them preparing these students for next steps. So I think there should be a better approach, and it should be some more leadership that can help them guide the way.
Shannon, look, they're targeting a number of folks in your party. And I would dare say, I fully understand a lot of Republicans and some Democrats being ardent support of the Second Amendment. But these students are not going away. and they are mobilizing and energizing young voters. And if you are 16 years old today, you're going to be voting for president in 2 years. That could pose a hell of a voting block for a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-old folks who are very concerned about gun control and mass shootings in schools.
So I think there's a couple of issues. One is, I don't think it should be a problem to understand fully who it is that's trying to purchase a gun. I get it. But I also think that we need to seriously look at what we do in this country in terms of healthcare, and specifically mental health care. There's obviously a trend here that is not a good trend, and there are reasons behind it. And until we address those issues, you can regulate as much as you want, which, I do think that it's a very good idea to know who it is that is trying to purchase a gun. I get that. But we also need to address the other side of it, which is mental health care in this country.
Greg, look, we absolutely must deal with mental health care, but we also have to contend with this reality that in this country, we have somehow assumed the position that everybody should be able to have a gun. It doesn't matter who they are. In fact, I retweeted earlier this statement that was made by Supreme Court Justice Warren Burger, who was not a liberal. And he said this: the gun lobby's interpretation of the Second Amendment is one of the greatest pieces of fraud. I repeat the word fraud on the American people by special interest groups that I've ever seen in my lifetime. And the real purpose of the Second Amendment was to ensure that state armies, the militia, would be maintained for the defense of the state. The very language of the Second Amendment refutes any argument that it was intended to guarantee every citizen an unfettered right to any kind of weapon he or she desires.
That's absolutely right, Roland. I mean, any legal scholar will tell you this is a complete misinterpretation of the Second Amendment. It is indefensible intellectually. And for all of our friends out there who say that voting doesn't matter, I think we can all agree. When you see Lucy McBath cast that vote in the name of her son, Jordan Davis, when you see Rashida Tlaib out of Michigan, or Ilhan Omar out of Minnesota, or when you see Ocasio-Cortez out of the Bronx, you know, voting matters because now there's somebody at the table that can break the back of this lie. Voting is not the only solution, but it is a weapon that we should not keep in the drawer. Lucy McBath, that was so powerful today, brother. And because now somebody gets in there to change these things. And the other thing I want to mention is with young Tyra Hemans, who this day, last year, got accepted into the school that she's at now, Pace University. On the day she got her acceptance letter, her school got shot up. But if you look at her social media following, it is tiny compared to David Hogg and some of these white students. And when you said you would allow her to use your platform, you would use that platform to get her message out, she's not just speaking for herself, she's speaking for black children. And as Teresa said, she shouldn't have to at 18 years old. To have that prescience of mind is very powerful. When those peace warriors came from Chicago down to Florida and said, look, it happens to us every day on the way to school. This is an opportunity. And when you have young people who should never, as she said, have to be elevated to that, it is our responsibility to provide them platform because let's be clear, as she is clear, it was only when whiteness got touched that this became a conversation at all.
Very true.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Calling all HBCU alumni, students, as well as leaders. Ford is looking to improve mobility in HBCU communities, and they are offering up a $25,000 mobility challenge grant. Now, here's the winning program will receive a grant of up to $25,000 to implement their proposal. The deadline to apply, folks, is March 31st, 2019. We want you to go to FGB.Life, FGB.Life for more information and to apply. Don't forget, the deadline is March 31st, 2019, and Ford goes further in our community, and we certainly thank Ford Cares for being a partner here at Roland Martin Unfiltered and for them supporting HBCUs.
Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video. Peace.